All right. That worked. Yay. I had to restart the computer. It's working now.
Oh, good.
Everything's fine. One of those weird things.
Oh, there you are.
Yep. I have arrived. Another day. Another opportunity to talk with people about anything that they decide they want to talk about. One of the things I like about it. Never know what we're going to talk about. Ian says, welcome everybody. Jono says, hi Guy. Hi Jono. Teresa says, hi. How are things today? They're pretty good. It's a little windy out, but it's nice and clear, so that's kind of nice. Carla says, hi Siofra and Ian. How was your 4th? We stayed at home. The 3rd was noisier than the 4th, actually, but both were pretty noisy. Our neighbors had lots of fireworks that I think are against the law to have, and they wanted to blow them all up at once. And a few of them did it last night as well, but it was farther away, so our local neighbors didn't have that many fireworks, I guess. They ran out, but hey. Ian says, feel free to participate. Donna says, new YouTube thing tonight. Crowns for participating. Even if you're a beginner, Ian says.
Well, I was inviting mine out. Feel free to participate even if you're a beginner.
He says crowns.
I know, he stuck that in there in the middle.
Yeah.
Teresa
says crown number 2.
Yeah,
what are the crowns by some of our names? I don't know. What are the crowns?
I don't know. Mine says crown. Has crown number 1 by my name. Teresa has crown number 2.
I don't know. I guess we're all getting kinged tonight.
Jono doesn't seem to have a crown.
Aw, I'm so sorry. Carla is also number 2. We all stayed home too. Saw some fireworks last night in the hollows. But that's about it. Teresa says number 3. Ian, I'm jealous. Now she's a number 3. It's like,
yeah, what? Yeah, I just don't get it.
It's some new. Oh, it says top fans up top. Maybe I did that.
I don't know. It says 75 XP. It must be. It must be something. There's something new they put on.
They put something new on there,
Yeah.
so I guess you guys are the top fans. So
Yep.
Congratulations.
Jono has 50. Carla has 50. Teresa has 75.
Jono
has 75.
has a number 3 now. I saw it in the live earlier this evening. I hate it. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know that we have anything we can do about it. Carla says, I have no crown. I'm so sorry, Carla. Let's ignore the crowns because we're not about the ego push, right?
Right.
This is just an ego stroke.
This is something we never expected.
This is something we have nothing to do with.
No idea about.
Teresa says, I love the crowns, but I want a gem. Yeah.
That's right. They should start giving out gems.
Oh.
And, yeah.
Jono has a crown. Yeah. Carla doesn't have a crown. Yeah. Okay. Let's ignore the crowns. They're sort of confusing to us. I don't know what they're thinking. I think they like competition. They like to get people to compete with each other. So, how was everybody else's week?
See, now, Carla, you have a crown. I think it just depends on how much you're chipping in during the chat.
Oh, maybe so. Teresa says, Carla, post more questions. See, there you go. All right. Everyone else is going to have to talk about it when they get in, too. I can see that coming. But hey.
That means you have to drink Crown Royal.
I don't think so.
No?
Yeah, nah.
Okay. I'm not that fond of that either. I prefer old Jack Daniels myself. When I drink,
I don't like any of them, so that's okay. You can have it.
I don't drink, so generally.
Carla says, there's a crown there now. This is strange. Teresa says, at least they have a purple background.
Oh, true.
Yeah. So, anyhow, ignoring the crowns. John says, dude, I was following earlier, read what it's about. It resets every stream, and I think it only shows the top 3.
Doesn't show up on them.
Are you trying to laser point me?
Oh, his background. I just want to see what's right. Never mind. Just fooling
Okay.
around. Just
He's fooling
nothing
around.
worth talking
Carlos
about.
says, "Oh, I see, Ian." Laugh out loud. All right, so moving on. What do we want to talk about today? Dia says, "Hello, both. Hope you are having a great week." Yeah, it's been kind of an intense emotional week family wise, but we've gotten through the worst of it, I think, and so we're on the other side, and things are going back to normal. Thank goodness. Teresa says we are sovereign in our community. So yeah, we're doing pretty good. The cat has decided he's not allowed to sleep in his bed anymore because he threw up in it, and we cleaned it and everything, but now he thinks it's a bad thing. So he won't touch it. I'm going to have to wash it, I think, so it doesn't smell like whatever it was that he thought was bad. Maybe that'll reset his brain.
You can always try it. Catnip on it or something.
Oh, that
Try
would
some
work. And
various
put catnip
things.
in it and just make him go crazy. If I have any catnip in my cupboard, I might have to buy some. And we could have some catnip tea. Shay says, "Hello, all." Hi, Shay.
Shay.
At least you don't have a crown. You have other fun things and colors. So, all right. Donna says, "Oh, also, I sent a message with lots of swearing in it, and YouTube blocked my message and took my crown away."
Yeah. Took your crown away.
Oh, YouTube, what is wrong
That's
with
funny.
you? It's just so picky, that YouTube thing. Their algorithm, I guess, their choice, right? Is that how that works? We are here but to comply.
Streaming is good. No drop frames.
All right.
I didn't know I could look at that.
Tina says, "Hi, guys." Hi, Tina. All right. You just never know how these things work. Oh, I'm just not fond of fireworks. They're not my favorite thing. Bunny was definitely not a fan. He was pretty skittish both nights. Carlos says, "Full moon is coming, guys." Yes, it is. And I think we're doing the live Amethyst Crystal Web thing on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. I have to post the link for you guys. Teresa says, "As in freezer spell." Okay. Put a hold on it. It froze, Jono? Is that what that means? I don't know. But anyhow, looking forward to the full moon. Jay says, "Yay for live Amethyst Zoom." Yes. Yay. And purple hearts. Teresa says, "I made a previous comment, respell."
Oh,
Didn't see it.
it didn't show up. Yeah, sorry. It didn't hold it either.
You might want to do that again. It might have just gotten lost. Jana says, "I was swearing about Wait, the tarot guy. I don't like him. He was even more arrogant than me." Pixie deserves all credit for the RWS deck.
Well, you're not right. You're not wrong. He had a lot of good information, but boy, was he pompous and
Pedantic and
pedantic and self-righteous.
oh
and,
my, yeah,
all those
I
stuff.
couldn't
Wait.
stand reading the guy myself. Every time I read him, I wanted to like, eh. And Dia says, "Are you both going to your cabin this summer?" No, not this summer. Um, we're fixing buildings this summer. We have a lot of like house projects that need to be done while the weather is good. So Ian and he's doing the reshingling of the building, the temple that we're in right now on the outside. And then we're both painting to get that done. We have soffits to put on to make sure that things don't climb into our attic in the winter time, because there's some soffits that are missing and some windows to repair. So, we're doing home improvement projects. So yeah, it's one of the reasons why I haven't had any videos for the last couple weeks, because we've been busy doing this. It's kind of hard to make a video when someone is banging nails on the outside of the walls, so there's really no point. I'm not blaming it on you. You need to do the project, so just timing. Can't do it that
Tell
way.
you what, you get lots of slivers from cedar shingles.
Oh my, and he's working on them right now. Carlos says, looking forward to it. I'm ordering some more chips, though. I'm getting low. Ordering some more chips. All right. Good. Get those amethyst chips coming. And we're still waiting for Teresa's previous comment to make an appearance so we can know what the question was regarding.
I've had that happen to people a couple times before where comments just basically disappear.
Yeah, they go into the ether and vanish through time and space.
It could be. The place where I worked, I once had an email or a voicemail that took 4 days to actually come through the system. I guess it got stuck somewhere, and I got it like 4 days late.
Teresa says, I did redo the comment. It still didn't show up. Maybe YouTube doesn't like the comment structure?
Well, then it's supposed to ask me. It's supposed to hold it and ask me to allow
That's right.
it, but it didn't.
I'm sorry, Teresa. It's nothing personal from us. Dia says, that's so nice, Siofra. My partner and I are moving soon to our own place, and we can't even figure out paint colors yet. Teresa says, freezer spell, but regarding politicians.
Yeah.
That could be why.
Yeah.
I don't know. They may have become political in our absence. I mean, the powers that be may have decided that that's a subject not okay.
That's what it sounds like. It might be a filter they put in, and we just have no choice on it.
And we didn't put in that filter. Teresa says evil ones. Yeah. Well, I guess we're not talking about that then. We could get banned ourselves, I suppose. I don't know. Internet. All the witches do it. Well, good for the witches for doing it.
No, I wish some of that stuff would do some good. My only concern is that by trying to deal with this individual, it's the nation's karma. Since he was elected through due process and all that, you're trying to fight the karma of the nation. I'm afraid if the karma of the nation is to go in the toilet because of who they elected, that's kind of the nation's karma. It's hard to fart with karma and get any results, though I'm not saying don't try.
Yeah, I know. It's true.
But it's just like, it's karma. Let's face it, people voted him in and they're giving him all the power. I mean, he could have been stopped
at many points.
Many points. Yep. And so you can't look at it as hardly anything other than karma, and that's really hard to put a stop to. Especially when you're talking about the karma of a nation for being so stupid for voting him in.
Carla says a small trick could be to name the energy you want frozen, Teresa. And Teresa says, I meant we should all over the world.
Yeah.
Carla says, I don't feel it was due process. Teresa
No,
says,
I don't either.
And now there are predictions that he will bomb my country. If he bombs Canada, we're all in trouble. Oh my God, I hope not. I mean, he says a lot of stuff, though, and that's the thing. He changes his mind so quickly, you can't necessarily, you can't trust the guy.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it, but I certainly hope that that's not true. Jono says, YouTube blocks all my comments about the participants of the East Mediterranean situation. I imagine other politics face the same.
Yeah, that must be it.
Yeah. But we are about magic, I guess, so we should be able to talk around it that way. I mean, that's the thing, is like, there is a history of witches and magicians and so forth doing things to try and help their neighborhood, their community, their people, their city, their country, and so forth. Some of them work, some of them don't. But, it's there, and you can find it in the literature and decide for yourself if you want to participate or not.
Some of the old original Golden Dawn members did some working things, Dion Fortune and others.
Well, there was that group of people that went on the coast of England and stopped Hitler from invading the country and then suffered consequences. A bunch of them died doing the ritual because they believed that it was against the universal law to try and stop someone's will, including someone like him. And because they believed that wholeheartedly, there were members, a number of them, that paid the ultimate price for the karma to be satisfied. And they didn't know when they went who was going to pay the price. So that was a huge risk on their part and a huge commitment. But no different than people going to war, really, never knowing for sure who's going to fall in battle when it comes to that. It's sort of an interesting thing. Carla says, that's why I think we have sway over this slightly. It feels like bad magic on their part.
I'm certainly not going to discourage anybody from trying to do anything about it. You know, maybe if there's enough mass behind an effort to fix the situation, it would start getting through.
Well, there certainly are plenty of people who are protesting about it.
You know, there's a lot of people who don't like the
They
situation.
have their energy, involved in it at this point. Apparently I need to put up my hair. It's actually pretty warm in here. But yeah, so, whoop, gonna fall down on my face. But anyway, we're more about interpersonal or individual paths.
No, just the politics. No politics.
As I do this to get this here. John says, Ian, can you post something? I'm just trying to figure out how the crowns work, and I want to see if you're still number one because you haven't really posted much. Carla says, like they're hacks, magical hacks. Nope, he's still number one.
Yep.
That's because he's in blue, maybe. Because he's the moderator. Maybe he gets an automatic number one.
Maybe so.
John is laughing. Carla says, sorry, I posted that before we stopped. That's okay, Carla. I mean, it's like the time lag between what we say, what people hear, what they type, and what comes through. There's always a little bit of that. And considering we do pretty well. I was rewatching one of our previous live shows, and it's actually, I'm pretty impressed with our ability to answer questions as, in a timely manner, as it were, and remember what we're talking about. So,
well, it's always an interesting thing. This might crackle on the sound a little bit. I'm gonna aim this up a little bit there.
Okay.
Okay. I forgot what I was saying. So.
An interesting thing.
Yeah, well.
Okay, whatever it was interesting. It'll come back. Baba says, have you worked with stolas? I don't think so, because I don't know what a stola is. Do you know what a stola is?
No.
We'd have to look it up, and if we have to look it up, we haven't worked with them. But we'll look it up, or Ian will look it up.
Long pleated sleeveless robe that could be worn by Roman wives?
That seems unlikely that it's an actual robe that he or she would be wondering if we worked with them. We wear our own robes. Jono says, Stolas is a demon. Okay, then the answer is definitely no.
Yeah.
We don't work with demons. We never have, we never will. We're not
I see
interested in
stolas like
any way whatsoever. We see no reason to work with them. There are like millions, literally, of other kinds of spirits that we can work with. And there's no need to work with demonkind for any reason, in our view. So no, we don't work with them. So if you have any questions about how to work with them, we're the wrong people to ask.
It looks like another stupid game thing.
A game thing? Huh? Well, anyway.
Anthropomorphic owl demon. Yes, it's
so no.
clearly out of the game.
I think I answered that question adequately. Yeah. We don't work with them. But thank you for the question.
Apparently from something called Helliverse.
Well, Dungeons and Dragons had all kinds of accurate, archetypal and god and goddess figures and things. Erin says, hello. Hi, Erin. Teresa says, I don't understand why there is such a trend of working with demons. It's so confusing. Yeah, well, we agree. I don't understand it either. Because, if you're going to pick who you're going to work with, if you can work with a positive being that has your best interest at heart and is going to make sure that you don't do something that's going to get yourself in big trouble versus a potentially, I don't want to necessarily call them negative, but a being that doesn't care about your karma or what kind of trouble you might be getting
Well, I'd
into.
just like to know what it is with this crap of taking them out of video games. I mean, people invent all kinds of stuff for video games. It doesn't mean you can use it for a magical operation. I just took a quick look at the whole Stolas demon stuff, and it's all just like bull. I mean, they've got Asmodeus listed in there, but then they've got a bunch of crap that's like Asmodeus was a person talking to people. I mean, it's just it's absurd. I don't get it. I don't know why this has become a thing. People want to. I guess if people want to worship fictional characters, that's. I
Well,
guess we got the Christians, so it's just all the same.
but at least they have some historical, stuff behind them, not just immediately made up. So Carla says because they're trying to be edgy, but they're magical hacks. Jono says,
Yeah,
I agree
well,
with you guys. When you've got gods and goddesses and fae and ghosts, etc., then why work with a djinn or a demon? Yep. Gabrielle says, hey, hi, Gabrielle. Carla says, disjointed magical hacks.
yeah, really they are, and nobody's going to actually accomplish anything like that. And in my opinion, the most people that think they accomplish something by conjuring up a demon are actually more likely creating an elemental that they then believe is the demon that they are communicating with, which of course will follow their wishes since they created it by their own
Their own
emotions and stuff.
unconscious, etc.
That's one of the things. If you don't have the clairvoyance to see the difference, that's one of the dangers Barton points out. It's really easy to accidentally create a elemental or a spirit being that you think is the one you're trying to contact that actually isn't because you had to work on it so hard and bring yourself to a peak of emotions and all that Western Hermetic bull about it.
Well, and there's also that whole notion that some spirits just like to pretend to be whatever it is you're looking for.
Yeah.
And they'll just adopt whatever it is you're looking for and not know it.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of stuff is only going to be as functional as the amount of energy you can put into it. I mean, this basically be making a servitor without realizing it and thinking they're conjuring a demon in most cases. And if somebody is really set out on a black magical path and wants to do that, they're stupid, but
That's our opinion.
it could succeed. I mean, I don't doubt there are nasty people who deal with demons. I mean, Verbato mentions such a group called the Fog Sea in his
Yeah,
fiction novel.
yeah, we don't talk about them. So Oki says, greetings, beautiful couple. Happy Sunday. Is there any spiritual significance or meanings behind headaches? I've been seeing people having them online at the same time. I don't know. It's probably just the fact that we're living in a highly stressed world environment right now, and stress can bring on headaches, and no one is sleeping well. Maybe they're like, I don't know, influenced by solar storms or some other thing. I don't know. So Baba says,
I'm
what
not
to
aware
do
of
if
anything.
you're trying to see a spirit? Well, you need to get clairvoyant, for one thing, which means you need to practice your sight, your other sight, and so forth if you want to actually see the spirit. We have some videos on the subject that you can check out. They're in my top 5, I think. Divination and magic and that kind of thing. That says, hi everyone, sorry I'm late. Summertime is like this in our family. Well, glad you're here, Beth. Gabrielle says, I just play with fairies. If I see one, I start baby talking them. Well, all right.
Yeah, well, it's just the only reason I can see, and I'm speaking in general terms. The only reason I can see for people wanting to work with demons is they want to be edgy, they want to be scary, they want to actually do mean things, or they just want to be like,
They
I'm
want to
so
have,
powerful, I work
yeah,
with demons.
they want to have power
But you know what?
and illusory.
Well, yeah, it is illusory, especially if you're working with demons. I mean, there are very few legitimate reasons a person might want to, but generally they won't be the beginners that don't know any better.
True. Gabrielle says, I wish they were physically solid. I'd put them in a Barbie Corvette. That'd be pretty cute to take a picture of fairies sitting in a Barbie Corvette. And Carla says, we're going out to see the fireflies and whippoorwills later tonight, Bethy. Summertime is magical. Well, awesome. I think that's great. Hopefully none of the fireworks chase the fireflies away. Imagine they don't like them either.
Yeah, when we were up at the cabin, I know we've mentioned before, but I got some good views of fairy houses, which I thought was interesting.
Oh yeah,
They were small, relatively
that was
small. They
amazing.
were like birdhouse sized.
Yeah. And then there was that cliff that had the ogres in it. The cliff house.
Well, that's your experience, not mine.
Well,
so,
right.
yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay. Just don't want to.
Ah. Gabrielle says, yep, laugh out loud. And Beth says, Gabrielle, you're cracking me up. I call them my loves. Gabrielle says, I want to make fairy homes. You make them out of little rocks and stick them together.
What I saw was like, I understand from reading a book by a guy named John Blofeld that the Taoists, I think this was in the 40s or 50s he went around, but the Taoists would make little fairy houses. And the one I saw was very much like a little dollhouse or something, and it had little stairs and all. It was, very much like a little actual house.
The ones out of the
cool,
cabin?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was one that was like a palace.
Of course, it wasn't physical.
Right.
It wasn't physically there, but yeah.
Gabrielle says, yes, out of rocks and sticks. Carla says, they were everywhere last night, Siofra. I'll send you a clip with a deer eating and fireflies all around her. Oh, thank you. I'd love that. Jano says, Okie Vision. I've seen that everyone is overwhelmed by life right now. Me too. I think it's weird astrology stuff above my pay grade to understand. I think people are stressed and that creates headaches. Well, yeah, that's what I think for sure. And, who knows? Everyone might have a different reason for the headache too, and it could be just a coincidence. Sometimes you see things in clumps. It's like, and because you're suddenly seeing the similar thing across different platforms, our brains automatically try to put them together and think that they're all the same phenomenon, when in actuality might be a similar symptom but completely different causes for each one of them, that kind of thing. But, I don't know. Gabrielle says, very cool, Ian. Beth says, that sounds so much fun. They do dances around the fireflies. Yep. Somebody wanted me to make fairy houses for my garden, and I got some popsicle sticks. But they don't last. I think rocks would be better. Gabrielle says, I'm Schumann Resonance did something very bizarre last week. People were saying they never saw it before. I think we looked that up last time.
Well, yeah, the Schumann resonance has to do with, actually, they're talking about,
The
well, it's a
resonance of the planet?
transmissional radio waves through the atmosphere, the ionosphere.
Ah.
But yes, from the planet, and they're using it as a psychic, magical thing, not just. It was originally come out as an electronic thing, but it's a natural resonance through the atmosphere. And I think it might be one of the things Tesla was planning on using with his Wardenclyffe Tower. Schumann resonances to transmit wireless power. But as far as any magical connection and stuff, all I know is the couple of things I've seen online. I don't really know anything about it, that as a magical aspect, or being the earth energy, that kind of things, which, it could be. I'm not naysaying any of that. I just don't know anything about any of that.
Carla says, I don't experience headaches from it, but some seem to be sensitive to solar flares. Oki says, thank you, Jono. I heard the headaches were attributed to something called the ascension process, and yes, the Schumann resonating. Gabrielle says, it's the frequency of the earth. I can feel it when it spikes. Carla says, Schumann usually syncs with coronal mass ejections hitting earth.
That could be. That makes sense.
Okie says, thanks, Gabby. And right now, of course,
Scientifically, yeah.
right now the sun is in its most active phase of its cycle. So Carla says, we had a large flare last week, so I suspect it picked that up. Al says, hey everyone. Hi, Al. Gabrielle says, it's Gabrielle. I don't like to be called Gabby. Sorry. If I did that accidentally. Just a short version for me. But I'll remember. I think I've done that before, so thank you for letting me know. But yeah, some people are definitely um, more sensitive to things than others. I used to be very sensitive to radar. I could feel it. Teresa says, don't ever call me Terry, please. Gabrielle says, not you, Siofra. Okie wrote Gabby. Okay. I know I've done it accidentally myself, but anyway, it's always good to know. Beth says, hi, Owl. Yep, life is interesting. Okie says, Gabrielle, I got it. I understand what you mean. Thank you for the correction. Beth says, don't get me going on radar. Well, it was very strange to be able to hear radar. It just drove me crazy. I could always tell when there was a radar trap up ahead because I could hear it before we ever got near it. That's when I was a lot younger. I also can hear some pretty high frequencies still, like refrigeration units that are out of whack and are making a high pitched, annoying buzz. I've had some places I've had to leave because I couldn't handle the sound they were making. It was driving me up a wall, but everyone's different. Gabrielle says it's like meeting a man named Robert and then calling him Bobby without knowing him. And Carla says, of course, we got no auras from that hit in my location, but some of the pics were fabulous. Well, yeah, the auroras are always at the north and south poles, but it has to be a pretty significant storm to get farther down. And these were in the lower X range. I think they have to get around an X5 or more to really get there, and then add a geomagnetic storm of a 4 or 5 level to do that. And I hope there's no one on here that's from Texas right now with what's going on with the floods that they're having. That was like such a huge event that just happened in the last day and a half or so. I cannot even comprehend what it'd be like to be sleeping in bed and have the river you're sleeping next to raised by 26 feet in 45 minutes. So I hope that people are safe. And
Wow, that's pretty.
yeah, I
Really?
mean,
26 feet in 45
26
minutes?
feet in 45 minutes. It was
That's
like
crazy.
unprecedented, the amount the river raised. And it took out entire RV parks and houses and things like that, a whole Girl Scout camp. And yeah, they're still trying to find people and rescue people. And I think there's more rain coming. So it's probably not good for them. So yeah, they're really getting battered by the change in our climate at the moment. Beth says, I don't like it at all. Alice says, hey, Beth. Gabrielle says, I would never do that to a man, but people do today to me all the time. Beth says, owl love. Gabrielle says, oh my God, that's scary. And Jonathan says, talking about sensitivity, maybe Ian can give input on this. I get the impression that most of the time gals are much more sensitive and tuned in than dudes.
I think so. I think it's not necessarily intrinsic to male or female, but more intrinsic to our culture, is my thought. Because males have the whole macho thing we're supposed to live up to. You're supposed to be blustery and take care of the one and be strong and be tough and beat up people, and all that stuff is just makes men more out of touch with themselves. And I think that's the real difference for the sensitivity. If uh, people should be in touch with themselves and their feelings. Everybody should be, men and women. But I think that's, I think it's largely cultural rather than anything else.
It certainly could be partly that. There's no doubt about it. But also our physiology is slightly different, which may make women more prone to accessing that and adding the culture into it, allow it to happen. And of course, we're all different. Ian is obviously a lot more sensitive than the average guy, in my opinion. Oki says the news reported seeing an interstellar object heading to Earth. Do you think we will see ETs in our lifetime? I think the interstellar object is just going to be an object and not ET, but certainly there are plenty of other things floating around in our atmosphere all the time, so who knows? Gabrielle says, sad, my friends in Texas. Carla says, they were saying it was once in 100-year flood. Yeah, at least. And the problem is they're having once in 100-year events every year, which is bad. And Beth says, sensitive men are rare jewels. You always want to be in their presence. That's from Beth. Gabrielle says, I've seen ETs. One was in my room. Well, it'd be nice if they would help us out in the situation that we're in right now. I don't see any evidence of it. Rio says, they in my room right now. Okay, ask them to give us a hand then. I'd appreciate it.
Some UAPs hassling Trump.
Yes, that would be funny. Of course, you know, we could go with the crow thing I had in mind. There's a lot of Trump flyers and things out there, so everybody get a Trump mask, run out and harass your local crows. And they'll remember his face, and then wherever he goes, crows will attack him, which wouldn't, like, you know, necessarily harm him, but it could be very annoying and could be fun to watch. I don't know.
See if I can send some bats at him.
Yeah, you and bats, yes. Gabrielle says they're observing us. I don't know what they're planning. Carla says it surely doesn't bode well. Dia says, that's such a brilliant idea, Siofra. Well, I think so. I mean, you know, the idea of yes. So I recommend and wholeheartedly support anyone who wants to try that out and see what happens. Rose says, that's smart, ha. Gabrielle says, I just play with them and the fairies. Well, okay, so long as you're making friends. It's always good to have friends. But that would help, you know, the earth could be like our ally in that. Like, I don't know if there's any other birds that would do that, though. I think crows are the only one I know of that will get very incensed. Like they remember people's faces, and that's how they found it out. They were doing an experiment at a college, university somewhere, and you know, students were going out and catching crows and then weighing them and marking them and whatnot, and then letting them go. Well, so then they started getting harassed by the local crow population, the individual students who did the experiment. And then they went on summer vacation or whatever, and they thought, well, the crows will forget. They did not. They did not forget. And then when the students came back, the crows followed them around and harassed the living daylights out of them. So then after that, they had them wear masks so that the crows wouldn't recognize them as individuals and harass them. And that's when I came up with the idea, like, you know, depending on the mask, that could have some impact there. And they tell their friends and they tell their children for, I don't know, 7-10 years or so, they'll remember an incident with a human that was not nice, that they didn't like. So, you know, don't want to get on their bad side. Carla says, do you guys remember the eagle about attacking him? That should have been the sign way back then. Oh, I forgot about that altogether.
I don't think I ever heard about that.
I don't know if I did. I don't think I ever saw it, though. Beth says, fairies are working overtime in the little happy garden. I harvested over 20 pounds of butternut squash this morning. Woo, that's a lot of stuff to take care of. Good luck. Gabrielle says, I wish you could do a paranormal investigation at my place. It's like a spiritual Disneyland over here. Haven't gotten around to closing any portals yet. I've been deep cleaning my place. Well, let us know how the portal closing works and how it goes. We're interested. Gano says, Luna has started making friends with crows. Today a mom crow brought her 3 fledglings with her to Luna's garden. Ooh, sweet. That's always nice when they bring their children around. My local crows have gotten familiar enough with me at this point that when I put some food out the other day, they all came down. Not just one of them. A bunch of them came down before I even moved, pretty much. I just started going back to the house, and they just like collected all over the peanuts and started going around with them. Oki says, what do you believe the majority of people need to practice spirituality, like meditation, astral travel, clairvoyance, etc.? What should be our top 3 practices for beginners? What would shift the world? Getting to know yourself and being a kind person is the best thing as far as shifting the world goes. Um, Meditation is definitely on the top of the list because it helps you to calm down and get to know yourself, and knowing yourself is the key to everything else that follows. What do you think?
Well, honestly, if you want to know what would shift the world, that particular aspect, I would go with Eckhart Tolle's vision, which is to disidentify with your mind and yourself and come to that place of enlightenment where you stop, people would stop being violent and angry and all that if more people could accomplish that. Um, I think he's right on that. If everybody could reach that perspective, that point of view, which is would take too much to explain here, but the only requirement is that people have some desire to become enlightened or become better than they are, and I think that's all it would require is if everybody tried, especially if they could accomplish the vision of Eckhart Tolle, where you become disidentified with your mind and you realize you are not your mind. Your mind thinks, but that is not you, and really, you can understand it intellectually, but that's not the same thing
Oh, yeah, definitely not the
as
same
as
thing.
being there. Yeah,
Absolutely.
but I don't think that's likely to happen because people have to want it. Somebody gave us a lot of hearts and things. Thank you.
And some
This is
laughters.
faces. Yeah.
Yes. It says, oh my, the fairies here are happy and we love our time together. Gabrielle says, yes, I've been practicing the disidentification. It's a nice break from the dualism. What,
Yeah.
when I can be in those states.
Yeah.
There's
I think it's something everybody should practice. Myself, after once I've actually read his book, rather than just listening to a couple of his lectures and things.
Teresa says, I think for beginners and for everyone giving really, really deep thought about ethics, well, how you behave in the world is definitely an important part
Yeah.
of any practice, no matter what it is, whether it's magical or mundane as far as it goes. And that's why I was recommending meditation, opening yourself up to other forms of life and existence, and the connection, being connected to everything, so that we don't think of ourselves as
Well, yeah,
singular,
that's yeah.
as for beginners to try and figure this out, because obviously Eckhart is not a beginner at this point.
Well, yeah, but no, this isn't. He isn't giving any advanced stuff. This is similar to Sri Ramana Maharshi's, where it's simple. If you can sit and watch your thoughts and be disidentified from your mind, that's really all it takes to reach a lot of those spots. That and being like in the now, where you're not focused on the future and the past.
Yeah, being in the now is important.
Yeah, and those two things I think would transform the world if people would do it. Yeah.
So Gabrielle says the pain of binaries and suffering is quite the motivation for me. Oki says also great video on the elements, Ian. Great explanation. Highly appreciated.
Thank you.
Glad you enjoyed it. I've been working on our whole collection of videos for the last few days to get better um, descriptions out about them so people know what they're about and can find them that way. So, yay. I thought it was pretty good when I went through the entire transcript. Oki says, been trying to watch my thoughts, not as easy as saying it.
Oh,
I'm
no,
practicing.
and that's what a lot of people who wanted to get into Barden's books discover is that it's not easy and it can take a long time sometimes. I mean, he gives an idea that you should be able to do a lot of the exercises in a month, that kind of time period, but for me it doesn't seem. I mean, a few people could be there, but I don't find it that easy. I certainly, you know, my progress takes much longer than that. Watching your thoughts is not easy if you're really doing it. The problem is all the other things that are coming up while you're trying to watch your thoughts, and
The
you know,
thoughts you're having instead of watching.
being still enough to try to watch them and not be interrupted, and try to keep your mind actually watching them and not think.
Not
I mean, if
participating.
if you actually think or go off or get interested in it, then you've lost the whole point. Yeah, so it's definitely not easy.
No. Yeah, there's a yoga exercise that I would do at the end. It's called, what is it called? It's like corpse pose. That's what it is. It's called the corpse pose. And when you're in corpse pose, from the outside, it looks like you're not doing anything at all. You're just laying there flat, right? But what you're supposed to be doing, first, you're supposed to be watching your breath, but not changing your breath, which is a big trick. I mean, that can be a good way to start that process of watching your thoughts, being able to watch something going on that you're doing all the time and resist the urge to change it automatically as soon as you become aware of it. That's the first part. And then the other part is like, putting yourself in different parts of your body and staying conscious, like going up your spine through your chakras and so forth. It's like there's a lot of activity. And the idea of that particular path, the hatha yoga that I was doing, is that the most active exercise becomes the most passive, and the most passive exercise becomes the most active because you don't really, it's an interesting process anyway. So, yeah, people might think you're not doing anything, but Carla says, I'd be super happy if I could get back to a place of neutrality without the visceral reaction of wanting to hiss at everyone.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that Totally is talking about, because once you get to that place, since you're not identified with your mind and emotions, then you don't really have anything to defend. If you need to like make a decision, you can make it and do it, but you're not dealing with all the emotions and anger at another person, and everything else, because you can stay kind of above those and watch them and let them dissipate and let your body go through that and say, okay, I just choose not to react to that. So it's a position of neutrality by realizing that you're not those things, you're not your mind, you're not your emotions. You become free of them in that they're still there, but they diminish and they become less important to you.
And then you're not reactionary, you're responsive,
Yeah.
which is a whole different
Yes,
place to be.
exactly.
Yeah.
I like that way of putting it.
Gabrielle says everyone in the world seems to be in opposing polarized groups. Eckhart said that this is a sign of collective ego breaking down. It gets worse before it gets better. And yeah, Carla, I think it's okay to have opinions, but I just don't want my opinions to have me.
Yes. Yeah, that's pretty much what
Yep.
Eckhart is talking about. Yeah.
Shay says, re-ethics, my elderly Christian neighbor who I help out is always so blown away by what an ethical person I am without the fear of damnation hanging over me. Well, that's
Yeah.
true, because a lot of people think that you can't possibly be an ethical person if you're not acting in accordance with the fear of going to hell for all eternity. That if you were given the freedom to do whatever you wanted without the fear of condemnation and eternal punishment, then you would go to your worst instincts and be a horrible person.
And you know what? That's an awful teaching.
It is.
It
I
really is.
agree.
There's a lot of those kind of teachings that are just awful teachings because they can put you into your own personal hell of life on earth that wouldn't necessarily be if you weren't, I mean, bad people get punished regardless, you know, if you're negative and bad, that's what you bring in. So that's the people you're going to run into. You're going to get that back at you. And, that's your karma. You don't have to be like cursed by some god or something. I mean, regardless, people have a conscience which comes out of the akasha, and it'll work on them. Even if they're just mean and evil people, it'll keep working on them, maybe over lifetimes, until at some point they really regret what they did as part of their karma and learn from it.
I
It's
just wish
not
it was
always that.
faster
It's not
sometimes.
always that obvious,
Right.
or that.
Yeah.
But
So Baba wants to know if you
yeah,
think the goetic demons are real.
do I think the goetic demons are real? Yeah. However, I might add that I think that a lot of their seals and things are mangled and distorted and not necessarily accurate. Yes, they are real. Like we were saying earlier, there's a lot of other better sources for beings that are just as real and able to do have a lot wider range. I mean, but yeah, in fact, there was a special occasion in which I needed to go talk to one who, because somebody was worshiping this demon, and I wanted to make sure, and I kind of made a deal with the demon. I said, if this person never darkens our doorstep again, then I won't have to you know, do anything about him. I'll leave him alone and let you have your worshiper. So I kind of made a deal with the demon in that sense. If the guy left us alone permanently, and he did, but that was, but it was clear to me that the being was real, and also that the description of the being in the Goetta was a little bit off. Now, I never saw the actual physical being because it was surrounded by a whirling, like the equivalent, the astral equivalent of whatever, a whirling shield of rocks and dirt and earth flying around him, which was described badly in the description in the Goetta, but it seems clear that that's what it came from. So yeah, I think they're real, but you can't really count on the Goetta to be very accurate for their seals and things. You'd have to have enough clairvoyance, really enough clairvoyance to scry it out properly and such.
Well, the other interesting thing about that particular situation was that it became obvious that it was making sure that this person wasn't going to be making real progress
Yeah.
in order to protect other people. So that was sort of an interesting insight.
Yeah, it was actually in the demon's seal right there, and I'm not going to go into which one and that. I don't think I should, but it showed me its seal, and by the layout of the seal, this particular being's cause seemed to be to bind uh, magicians from doing harm in the guise of getting worshippers and things like that. So it seemed like part of this particular demon's purpose was, in fact, to make sure that demon worshippers and evil people couldn't practice much power. It blocked certain aspects of power from them, and it's all actually in the seal. But I'm not going to
Yeah.
point it out or anything to people because,
Well, we want him to do his
Yeah.
job.
yeah. So it seemed
We
like
don't
that was
want to
part of his
undermine
job.
his activity.
It wasn't described like that in the Goetta, but that seemed like he showed me that that was part of his seal and that's part of the job to try and go along and, do that and yet still keep the people from doing too much harm to their own karma and too much damage to themselves. So demons aren't necessarily evil. They have negative jobs, and so in this case, that one was like to hinder a person from their harmful magic that would harm their karma. Even the real legitimate demons can't won't. Well, yeah, it's a complicated question, but yeah, I think I've probably said enough about that.
I think so.
Yeah.
So Jono says initiation into Hermetics is a whole lifetime worth of homework.
Yes, it is.
Beth says, I see my thoughts radiating out of my body and literally transcend visually into the clouds. That sounds like fun. Gabriella says, yeah, it's hard. I think nature helps me to get into thoughtless awareness because nature is so captivating. I find it easier outside. Yeah,
Yeah, me too. And especially for me, especially if I'm alone in nature, which I don't do so much anymore since I met Siofra. But I used to drive way out and go for long walks and things in total wilderness through the trees and things a lot. Now we do it together.
Beth says, Shay, hearts. Jano says, Baba, the demons are real. I'm friends with a demon no later. Carla says, exactly, angel girl. Gabrielle says, that makes sense, Ian. Yeah, I have not arrived People get on my nerves. I'm trying.
So, um, so now here's another thing. Carla had a message held, and I have no idea why. It says her message, and it probably won't show up for everybody since when I approve these messages, they usually don't. But it's up under Jonah's thing. It's Carla Fink said, "See Shay, now I want to hiss at your neighbor." I have no idea why it would have held that.
I don't either.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that, and I don't know why it would have held it. So who knows what they're
Well, all right then.
hiss at somebody. I mean, that's a yeah.
Hissing doesn't seem to be very
I thought I'd read it
aggressive.
since when I don't see it on yours.
Well, not yet because I'm down here. But maybe.
Yeah, no, it's just
Nope,
it
not
doesn't
showing
show
up.
up on yours.
Yep.
So I don't know if it shows up on anybody else's when I approve these or not, but it seems like when I approve them, they're just gone anyway. All right, sorry.
That's okay. Gabrielle says, do you guys have any experience with cryptids? Why do some of them stink? No, I really haven't met a cryptid, so I don't know why they stink. Maybe because they're smelly and they don't take baths. I don't know. Oki says, what's the most advanced form of magic are you two looking to master currently?
Well, I can take mine.
Go ahead.
Well, mine is actually the true Kabbalah, as Barden puts it. That's where you pronounce a word to make events happen. So you might pronounce a word to start a fire, or you might pronounce a word to make something lighter so you could carry it around easily, for example. So that's the most advanced form I'm working on because it's also will initiate you completely. But theoretically, you're not supposed to get into that until you finish the first book, till at least the 8th chapter. But he also says you can work with it if you have noble intentions. So I'm going on the noble intentions route.
All right, sounds good to me. As far as me, I don't know how to define what I'm working on. I mean, I'm a very organic thing. My process is pretty organic, and I get inspiration from spirit. Right now, my Kundalini has been activated pretty much, and I've been working with it most nights. So that's currently what I'm working on, is allowing the Kundalini to flow through me on a more regular basis to help with my body, my health, my mind, and anything else that it wants to get into as far as that goes, and not blocking the energy and staying open to what the universe has to tell me. So I'm an extreme intuitive when it comes to that kind of thing. I don't have like a project specific body of knowledge that I'm currently trying to master. I don't know how to describe what I'm doing, but that's me. And trying to live a good life.
Yep, I'm working on lots of stuff, mostly through Barton's books, but also with supplementary from like Eckhart Tolle and really people I consider illuminated masters.
So Beth says, well, Siofra, guess who's eating now? Now, obviously your cats. Baba says, I was trying to work with goetic demons. What is the consequences?
Well, you've got several possibilities, which I won't go take too much time over this, but assuming you actually get a hold of the demon and work with it, number one, if the conditions aren't met that the demon needs, it probably won't succeed for the evocation or however you're trying to get a hold of him. Mental travel is certainly easier than evocation and such. The consequences could be, number one, if you get the demon to do something for you and agree to do it, you've got 2 or 3 things happening. Number one, the demon has to use energy to make that happen. That either has to come from you, or the demon has to come up with the energy itself to do it. So it's almost like a currency situation. It either has to take that energy from you, and in most cases, if they're going to do something for the person, it'll take that energy from you, and you could suffer health consequences or fate consequences and things like that to get the job done. And the demon generally won't do things like that themselves and use their own energy unless you're enough qualified magician that they could make a pact with you. And you would know about that. You can't, those kind of pacts don't really happen accidentally. So chances are, if it works, it comes at some aspect of your fate. And then, of course, you're going to have whatever karma's attached to it. Because if you get a demon to do something, the karma of that goes entirely on you. It doesn't go on the demon, whatever happens. So the karma for whatever you have that do happens as if you'd done it yourself. So you can get that bad karma from that. So somebody who's really knows what they're doing and can tell enough, that's clairvoyant enough, and can tell enough that they're not actually causing a bad thing. Because you might try to do a favor for somebody and help them out, for example. Say you're trying to use a demon to help somebody out for some reason. I know some people use them that way. Like, I don't want to name names, but you have to know enough to be able to tell that for sure that that's not going to cause some sort of negative thing. I mean, it's like the whole thing. If you go out the store and you break your leg, is that good or bad? Well, it depends. Maybe something worse was going to happen. Maybe you were going to get in a car wreck and die on the way. Maybe the store was going to blow up, so it saved your life by breaking your leg. Those things aren't so easy to predict. So unless you're enough clairvoyant and everything to do that, you're always facing some kind of dangers from it. But the most often and most likely one is it'll come. If it comes about, it come from taking your energy and using your energy for that. So you might end up with some sort of illness or something as a result.
And there's the unintended consequences. That's like not knowing the whole situation and what really needs to happen is where I think we mostly fall down on that. Jay says, hello and thank you, Beth. Beth says, Shay, you're precious, lots of hearts. Sandcat says, hi, coming in late. Hi, Sandcat. Beth says, hi, Sandcat. Oki says, what's your belief system on a family member passing and the burial cremation ceremony process? What do you believe is a ritual for a family member to pass on? I want to make sure they're good. I think that depends upon your culture. That's pretty culturally specific. And, everyone's going to have their own system of beliefs as far as what works. In general, passages after life are dependent upon that. They're dependent on the culture. When I encounter a spirit and that's stuck, an earthbound spirit, sometimes it's because they didn't know they were dead and weren't found, or the body wasn't found, and they didn't get the rituals that they were expecting. So as far as that goes, and in general, the rituals that happen after someone dies are for the people that are not dead. They're for the living to help them process it. Mostly spirits don't care what happens to their body, but like I said, if they're raised in a specific kind of religious setting or something like that and they wholeheartedly believe it, it can disrupt their spirit if they don't get what they're expecting. I don't think there's anything better than, I don't think it's like you should get buried or you should get cremated or, these are the right way of doing things, because I don't think there's a single way of doing it. So that's what I would think. Teresa says it showed up for me. Jono says, I see the hiss message.
Okay, well, good. Well, some people get it, even if you don't get it. I guess maybe, I don't know. Maybe because you're running the channel. I don't know.
Baba says, but what spirits have you worked with? I've worked with so many different kinds of spirits, I don't even know if I can answer that question.
Yeah, and I'm not going to mention the demonic one that I worked with because it's already been a problem because people have, it's a problem of nomenclature. And by the way, I wanted to add that if you I would recommend instead always one of Barden's spirit beings in his second book, because they're much more likely to tell you if something's going to harm your karma or not do things that would harm your karma, even if you ask them to. They're a lot more likely to refuse because they're not looking at potentially taking advantage of people or making pacts or anything like that.
And they have all these great descriptions. You can actually find one that says, I will not do anything to let you harm yourself.
Not only that, but the Barden seals and things are completely accurate. He's went through and rechecked them all and personally contacted each one of the spirits in his books and got their information from them.
And there's also a lot more to choose from
Yeah.
Seriously, there's a lot more variety and a lot more specificity when it comes
Yeah.
to what
Yeah.
they're skilled in and what they can help you
The
learn.
the one I worked with is I'm not going to point it out, but it's become a problem because I didn't work with it. I talked to it once. But the problem is that somebody out there invented some stuff and decided that this demon was the same as Ishtar through some nomenclature stuff and the way languages changed and all that stuff. They decided it was the same as Ishtar, so they could worship this demon with its demon seal in the Goetta, and it's really they're really worshiping Ishtar. So it's a self delusional type of thing, but it's out there and people are actually doing it and not realizing the difference. And so that's
Yeah.
yeah, that's how this came about. And so I wanted to talk to him, make sure that this demon worshiping guy didn't darken our doorsteps ever again.
No, he did not.
Yep.
He got very angry with us
Yep.
and got drunk and sent me some really horrible messages on the phone before I blocked him. that was like, really? Okay. Everyone never really understands that when someone is mad at you and wants you to
Yeah.
do something for them, yelling at you
There's,
and calling you names is sort of a
yeah.
method for getting you to forgive them and get back to. I don't know. The whole thing
I,
is
I
just
I worked with
nuts.
multiple ones of Barton's books.
So Gabrielle says, haha, it's probably their stench repellent like skunks have. I wish skunks did not stink. They're so cute.
Apparently, they make good
Good
pets if
pets.
they've been de-smelled.
Deskunked. Desmellified. Carla says, okay, YouTube, I just arched my back at her neighbor. No hissing involved. Meow. Gabrielle says, haha, Carla. Beth says, I go with the flow. Whatever comes up, I work on at the moment. Yeah, me too. I mean, that's pretty much how I've functioned my entire life. It's like I can feel the energy, the moving energy, the flowing energy, or whatever, and whatever comes up is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I do that. Carlos says Kundalini must be an energy that needs to be at play. My bestie is tapping in too, and she's an atheist. I've been waiting. Well, Kundalini doesn't care what your belief systems are.
Yep.
That's a fact. It just seems to be, it just exists. That's the way it goes. Carla says laughing, angel girl. Gabrielle says laughter. Beth says playing with a demon needs to have a warning label. It's like playing with a loaded weapon. Yeah.
That's true. It is. I don't know. I don't know why so many people want to go that route. And it seems to be the first thing everybody wants to do, and it's probably the last thing everybody should do. I mean,
It's so
there
pointless.
is a place for it, but you need to be a very advanced practitioner and quite advanced and clairvoyant to be able to do it safely, which you can do. If you reach that point, you can work with them safely, but you're also at that point you're not going to be into doing anything negative with them.
Yep.
So there's not much point.
Gabrielle says chinchillas are also so cute. And how does angels and demons factor into non dualism if everything is equal? If we're more neutral, do we attract neutral spirits and energies?
Well, um, it's that's kind of a hard one to explain shortly, but they just factor into it because they're just there. When you reach the non-dualistic aspect, you're one with everything in a sense, but your neighbor Bob can still come over and slap you in the face. I mean, and it'll still hurt. The thing is, you might decide to slap them back or not, but at any rate, you won't be offended about it. So, um, yeah, now the second half of the question, if we were more neutral, do we attract neutral spirits and energies? Well, um, basically that would be yeah, but generally, really get neutral, you won't necessarily attract any unless you try to.
Okay, so Oki says, which Barden book should I get first, and do you recommend ebooks? I heard the words can be manipulated.
Well, they could be manipulated, but yeah, ebooks are just fine in general for Barden stuff. and there's a lot of them out there, so you shouldn't have any problem finding a good one. So you need to at least read the first one and understand it. The second book is Evocation. The third book is Kabbalah, but you can't really understand the second and third book without at least having an overview of his first book. So I'd recommend the Initiation into Hermetics. And I have a downloaded PDF version. It's just fine except for a few errors. Whoever transcribed it made a few spelling errors and things like that in it. But then the original, Barden's original first work has a few spelling errors and things in it anyway, so. But yeah, it's pretty good, and I'd recommend them, so.
He adds, are there negative consequences to working with angels?
Not, well, and again, it's, okay, angels is a judgment, a human judgment, okay, but angels are spirit beings, and generally, so I prefer the term positive spirit beings, and not really so much, because most of them, like the positive spirit beings Barden mentions, he mentions a number of them, like the spirits of the Mercury sphere, were worshipped in the past as standard worship for angels, and they're related to the Shimham Farash, if you're familiar with the not the 70. Well, anyway, I don't want to go into that too much, but
Short answer, not really.
not really. No, yeah, not really, because most of them won't work with you or do anything to harm your karma and that kind of stuff.
So Gabrielle says, can I slap Bob back if I'm in a non-dual Zen state?
Absolutely.
And Beth agrees.
And in fact, you could still slap him back if you're in a non-dual state. But the question would be, do you want to? In that point, it would be not out of anger. It would be out of, if it makes sense that the person is going to hassle you in the future or not, or that kind of thing. So it would be in the sense of the ultimate goal and result of slapping them. Would it be positive or negative type of approach? You know, you feel you basically, the thing is, you can still react, but it's more reasoned and less, and not reasoned as in mind thinking, but it's it's a hard subject to talk about.
Results
But
oriented.
yeah, it would be more like practical. It would be more practical. Does it make sense to slap him back? You're not doing it out of anger. You're not doing it because you're irritated. You'd be doing it as like, is it gonna make him hassle me less in the future, or that kind of thing, or is it going to exacerbate him and cause him to have more problems, to go home and beat his wife? You know, so it would be more from a non-judgmental state. You could still decide to do those things, but this from a non-judgmental state, not like because I don't like you, or you know, that kind of thing.
So she adds, does being enlightened make people boundaryless? I don't think so. I think it actually gives you better boundaries because you know who you are and where you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, the boundaryless is like the ultimate, like the God, the being, the sensation of being, as Tolle puts it. But you still have to deal with practical things. I mean, you know, if I'm a Buddhist, say, and I believe that harming all life is bad, what about all the bacteria you kill when you breathe in? You know, what about Crowley commented on it that way, because killing fleas, you know, it's like killing all these life forms. He was a mountain climber, and he had a tendency to have problems with fleas because of the Sherpas and things they were using. But you know, and he said the same thing about karma, because if I killed 10,000 fleas at the base of this glacier, doesn't mean I'm going to be killed by 10,000 fleas later.
Or become flea 10,000 times and get killed
Yeah.
over and over again. Okay, so
So no, you can still apply your boundaries. You just don't. You don't. They're not in control of you. They're not ruling you. You're controlling them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Shay says, Gabrielle, laugh out loud. Gabrielle says, I'm trying to work this stuff out. This planet ain't a utopia yet, and
That's
I love
the
you
truth.
guys. I'm helping Bob's enlightenment process.
That's right. That's right. I like the boxing glove there.
Yeah,
That's
boxing
great.
glove.
Yep.
That makes sense, like responding from a place of wisdom.
Yeah.
Oki says, how effective is the Helm of Awe for protection?
Never heard of it.
Me neither. So for us, not at all. For you, I don't know. We can't tell.
Yeah, there's a lot of those things out there. There's a whole lot of Indian ones that are. So this is the Norse symbology. Yeah, I don't know anything about it. It looks interesting, but yeah.
That's Nordic?
Yep, Nordic.
Okay. Well, if you're
Yes.
not into a Satru and a Nordic person, then it wouldn't really
Yeah.
do much for you,
Yeah,
probably.
no, I'm not familiar with it. Yeah.
You'd have to be familiar with the symbolism and understand it completely in order for it to function. So
Got a
that's
nice
part of how symbolism
It's
works.
got a pretty nice description of the symbolism and stuff. Key
Yeah.
aspects of protection, still fear in opponents, courage and strength.
Yeah, and if you can imbue the symbol with the properties that it says that it has, then it can certainly be very effective.
Yeah, those kind of things really depend on how much you can get into contact with the power, what Barton calls the power sphere of that. So if you can really get into that Nordic mindset and stuff, that the people who really use that effectively, if you can make that kind of intimate contact with it, then you can use those things effectively. But you have to be able to get yourself into the power sphere of that. And also, that can be the downside to some of these things, that you might not want to be influenced that much by the power sphere of some of them, depending on what they are. I mean, if you started using some of Hitler's symbols, it would not be, you know, it would not be a positive thing, even though some of them, like the swastika, was originally pre-Hitler and was a little bit different and had a totally different meaning than
Right, he perverted
Hitler
the symbol.
ascribed to it. Yeah.
Yep, and that's the thing that people would connect to. So Beth says, Gabrielle, when you slap, don't just slap back with your human body, use your astral and spiritual body as well. Jay laughs. Gabrielle says, slap him multidimensionally.
Yep.
Beth says, yes. Kiara says, what do you guys recommend for staying positive during these times? Remember that little things are still important. So when you're overwhelmed with like the amount of stuff that needs to change and what's happening is like it is very overwhelming and very depressing and upsetting for those of us who are sensitive and care about other people. Try to bring it down to yourself and the actions that you can take. One person that you can help or say a kind word to or do something for. Anytime you do something like that, you're actually, you may not know how much of an effect you're actually having. Blah. I got two words in there and they don't work together. How
like
much of
happening.
how much of an effect you're having on reality and the world around you, but they're like positive ripples that can go out from you and help you out. And also, when we started the Amethyst Crystal Web project, one of the things that's happened with the project in the last few months really is that it has become a haven for people like us to go to sort of experience the joy, peace, and tranquility that we're building in the web, and you can participate in that, and that can help to shore up your energy field and so forth, so that you're not as devastated by all the negativity that's going on around us. We want to pay attention to what's happening. We don't want to put our head in the sand and pretend it's not like it is, but also we want to know that what we do is effective, is going to help us, is going to help others, and unless you are actually a elected official in the government or in a position of authority that can have an influence on policy that's, an appropriate influence or something like that, the rest of us have to figure out what we can do with what's left. And it is a challenge, there's no doubt about it. So taking care of yourself and realize that you are important regardless of everything else that's going on out there. You matter, and how you feel is important, and taking care of yourself is important, and taking care of the people that you care about and that you love, and in your environment, your community, or whatever is important. And we want to be alive when this is over so that we can help out on the other side of this, assuming we get to the other side of this, which I'm deciding we're going to get to the other side of this. Why not? It's more helpful than the other opinion or vision or what have you. So, yeah, finding things that give you joy, animals and gardens and trees and nature and anything like that. So, yeah, do what you can. Gabrielle says, reminds me of the Doctor Strange movie where the Ancient One knocked Doctor Strange into the astral. Well, yeah, slapping him with your other bodies. He's slapping him out of his body in that case.
Yep.
Jay says, Kiara, pace yourself from the news, be in nature. Cute animal videos. Yes, I watch cute animal videos to help clean my brain before going to bed. Gabrielle says, that's why I've been cleaning my place to get my environment calm. Teresa says, for staying sane and grounded, remember to tell yourself that the problem won't be improved by dwelling on it. Change activities to doing something constructive in your immediate life.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is basically a very good idea. Gabrielle says, yeah, I want to be changed. That's the best thing I can do for the world is heal. Absolutely. Because, it's like, I know I've told you guys about, the random people that gave me the rose when I needed to get a job and gave me the confidence that I needed to be able to, go through the tests and the interviews and so forth in order to get the job that I needed. And there's no way to explain to those men, the two men who, in the different occasions, who randomly handed me a rose, how impactful that small gesture was to me in my life. They'll never know. Maybe they will on the other side. I don't know if they will or not. But that in itself tells me how important small actions can truly be. And you may not know how important you are and how vital you are to the life that you're in and the life that's around you. But know that you are. And, it's like time passes, things change. That's one thing you can guarantee, that you can always guarantee that nothing will stay the same. So whatever the state is that we're in right now, it too will change into something else. Hopefully something better, but it will change. So keep hope alive. And really join the Amethyst Crystal Web Project if you want to. We do a live Zoom now every month to just add to the web itself and to so forth, and you can look at the videos that we have up on we have a special category just for the Amethyst Crystal Webs. You can look at for the playlist, and you can find out what it's about and decide if you want to participate or not. And I'll be posting the Zoom thing, and then I offer the Zoom, we record the live Zoom, and everyone knows it, so people can not have their faces on camera if they don't want to. And then we share that without a fee attached. So anyone, no matter what time zone you're in, you can participate later when the moon is in your sky and charge up your own amethyst and start to add energy to this whole project that's getting more movement recently, which is just way cool. So Gabrielle says, yeah, I want to be changed. That's the best thing I can do for the world is heal. And Beth says, I'm loving the crows. They are so frustrated with their offspring. They open their mouths for food, yet they can feed themselves. Our birdie daycare. Gabrielle says, that's cute, Beth. Hokie says, Kiara, find 10 things you are grateful for that practice grounds me. You have the power to pass life's test. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, too. And, it's like you don't have to wait for a specific holiday to find things that you're grateful for. Every so often I do that. It's like random strangers who've saved my life, for example. It's like I thank them even though they don't know who I am. That says, so having a murder of crows with my observations, the crows keep their young. Yep, they do. They keep their young. And you don't see them until they are able to fly. That's one of the reasons why most people don't see really baby crows, because they stay in the nest until they're capable of flying. But you can tell who they are because, one, they're a little bit smaller, they have different kinds of feathers, and they're pretty awkward when they fly. They're sort of like drunken crows. They haven't quite gotten it all down yet, so yeah. Gabrielle says, you can train them to bring you money, Beth. Yes, you can. But that takes a lot of effort. Teresa says, I'm going to scatter amethyst chips around where I had to cut grass in case I disturbed Fae activities. Why not? Gabrielle says, money and crows. That's a money and a crow. Okay, that's pretty cute.
Yep.
But if you can't build your own peanut dispenser machine, I'm not sure exactly how you train them.
I want to teach them to pilfer wallets. How do we do that?
Oh, well, they probably
Not
already
really.
know.
Not really. I wouldn't
Yeah.
do that, but
They probably already know how to do that. I've seen some cat videos where cats are pilfering wallets. They're going in and grabbing money and taking it out. And birds, other birds like parrots and things like that, is grabbing money out of someone's wallet and walking off with it.
you got to train them to come give it to you.
Yeah, right.
Train a bunch of crow thieves.
Carla says they'll love that, Teresa. Haha, cat thieves. That's hilarious, says Gabrielle. Yeah, there's some cats that are like, Shay says crow karma.
The CIA tried to train cats for a while. It didn't work very well. They tried putting bugs in the cats. They put an antenna in the cat, put a transmitter with an antenna in the cat's tail and stuff. The cats didn't work. They wouldn't cooperate very well with the process.
Apparently, there was a town that tried to.
And they got run over by cars.
There was a town that tried to train cats to deliver mail.
Yeah.
They had like 10 cats. They were trying to train them to deliver mail, and and that didn't work either. It was a failed attempt because the cats didn't care about the
was
mail.
Kind of funny, but I feel sorry for the cats. They install a long wire antenna in its tail.
Ew.
It's like things like that. It's like, but the cats wouldn't cooperate. Couldn't get them to go over and be petted by the people they wanted to bug and listen to, and it just didn't work out. CIA tried some crazy stuff in the past.
Carla says specific wallets. Ah! Beth says, Gabriel, they owe me rent. Oki says, money and crows is all a magician knows. Laugh out loud. Carla says, we'll train them with the masks. Oh, and I didn't actually miss this on purpose, but I forgot it when I was going through all the other stuff. The NW or whatever it was, the abbreviation. It looks like an M on my screen, so I couldn't understand it anyway. Carla says, we'll train him with masks. Gabrielle says, there'd be no karma because people drop money all the time. Teresa says, credit cards that are tap enabled. Gabrielle says, fairies re-gift things all the time. They probably re-gifted some of my rings. Probably they did. I wouldn't be surprised. So we're coming up on the end of our hour and a half here. So hopefully we've gotten some inspiration from today's show. Illumination or whatever. Always interesting. We enjoy it, though. We're hoping everybody has a great week and nobody ends up in an area with lots and lots of rain and rivers. Jay says, wonderful to hear you all. Teresa says, we should have periodic 2-hour-long chats. Well, good for you. This is about as long as I can maintain myself, I think. It's like, Ian says, glad you were all here. Thanks for participating. We get to do it every week, so it adds up over time. Ariel says, this was fun. Bless you guys. Tina says, thank you. You're welcome, Tina. And, yeah. And anybody else who wants to, join in the Amethyst Crystal Web Project, it'll be listed up there sometime today, probably, as far as the live Zoom, and then we'll put up the link so people can participate. Carl says, thank you, Siofra and Ian. Much love, all. See some of you Wednesday. Okay. Hokie says, sending you to love and light. Thank you for helping us gain a better understanding. You're welcome. Teresa says, it's so nice having these get-togethers. Thank you. I'll see you on Zoom. All right.
Right. Blessed be everybody.
Blessed be everybody. Ariel says, I've been meaning to join. I've just been overwhelmed. That's okay. It'll be there when you're ready. So, all right, guys. Have yourselves a wonderful week, and some of you I'll see pretty soon. Blessed be everybody. Bye-bye.